Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte, and we are taking a look today at the Philadelphia Flyers and continuing our series looking at non-playoff teams making their offseason moves. And we're looking at the Flyers today, playing Armchair GM. Let's get right into it. So, the Philadelphia Flyers had a disappointing season. They missed the playoffs this year, and that's very non-Flyer-like. They usually get in the first round or maybe the second round and they get eliminated. Okay, whatever. They didn't even do that this year. They missed the postseason. And with Alain Vigneault behind the bench, this is a team that's supposed to be a cup contender, let alone a playoff team, a cup contender. And they went to the second round of the playoffs last year against the New York Islanders. They got beat. So, unfortunately, things didn't work out for them. But they were a really good team. And going into that, as the pandemic was kind of taking shape in the beginning of 2020 last year, they were playing really good hockey. So, things have really fallen off since then, though. For the Philadelphia Flyers, they had a tough season this year. Carter Hart didn't look the same. The defense didn't look the same. The stars up front just weren't playing their best. Guys like Voracek, Giroux. Van Riemsdyk picked it up a little bit later on, but there was obviously some issues for the Flyers. It was really reliant a lot on guys like, Sean Couturier and Travis Konechny up front and even Joel Farabee. So the Flyers were a little bit of a different team, and now we've heard, really since the trade deadline, they were saying we're not going to make a lot of moves at the deadline. We're going to, rationally take some time. We're going to wait till the offseason and figure out what we're going to do. So head coach is going to stay. That's the first thing. I usually look at the head coach. We're keeping Alain Vigneault. He's a good head coach. So then the second thing, what's next behind Vigneault? Well, I would look at a backup goaltender because that's been a constant problem for the Philadelphia Flyers. They've had, they weren't able to get the best out of Sergei Bobrovsky. He goes to Columbus, and, the rest is history for Bobrovsky. He's had a really good career. Not this year in Florida, but that's besides the point. He's been a good goaltender, but again, didn't work out in Philly. Brian Elliott, again, not really the best goaltender. So, are they able to pick someone up? I think they're going to go with Pekka Rinne. I think the veteran leadership of Pekka Rinne, he is a fairly cool goaltender. He has his moments as well. Most goaltenders do. They're pretty crazy. But Pekka Rinne adds that veteran leadership, that stability. And, he's a pretty reliable goaltender. I think he would be a good mentor for the young Carter Hart and just add a little bit of stability behind the young Carter Hart. And I think that's really what the Flyers were lacking this season. And they really didn't have confidence whether Hart was in or out of the net. And they just felt more confident with Hart in. But that started to wane and wear off as the season went along. So expect to see them to bring in, I don't know if it's Pekka Rinne. I think he's the more, honestly, cheaper option over, say, maybe a Freddie Anderson or a Tuukka Rask. I think they want an upgrade over like a Mike Smith. They've already dealt with these with Brian Elliott and guys like, what's his name, Cam Talbot. It just hasn't worked. So I could see them going for a guy maybe a little bit of a step above Mike Smith and going for a guy like Pekka Rinne on a maybe 1 or 2 year deal. They're going to trade. They're going to make some trades this offseason. And a lot of people were getting mad at me saying, because I said trade Sean Couturier. And, what else do they have behind Couturier that is worth even trading for? And a lot of Flyers fans said, they'll never trade Couturier. You can't trade him. No, don't do it. Don't do it. But I was being, I understand where it's coming from because he is a good player. You don't want to trade your good players. But when you look at the Flyers and they're saying they're going to make these big moves this summer, well, who are you going to trade? Nobody's touching Claude Giroux's contract. Sorry to tell you this. Nobody's touching Giroux's deal. Jakub Voracek, same thing. He's probably worse. You're not trading those two, right? And that's dead cap. That's like $15 of dead, or $15 million of dead cap space between those two guys. Shane Gostisbehere, they've tried already. They've tried waiving his contract. So they might have to trade this year's first round pick and Gostisbehere just to move him out. And that might even be a stretch. So who do you move out? And even JVR, who had a good season, that 7/7 deal, they're not going to move that out too easy either. So now you're talking about Sean Couturier. Okay, well, you don't want Couturier traded. Got it. You guys have made that very clear to me. You don't want Couturier traded. Well, they're not trading Carter Hart, especially with a down year. His value is going to be less, and he has the potential to go back to that Carey Price-esque elite level goaltender status as soon as next year, depending on how things work out. So, again, sophomore slump, whatever you want to call it, it was a tough year for Hart. So goaltending is going to stay the same, but you are going to bring in Pekka Rinne. So you've got that. Now, who are you going to bring in? Again, ideally you want to see some changes up front. They didn't have a lot of depth. I liked Joel Farabee, so you keep Joel Farabee. You're keeping Sean Couturier. You're keeping Giroux. You're keeping Van Riemsdyk. Do you buy out Jacob Voracek or Giroux? I think that's a stretch, but maybe if you want to move, if you want to make some cap room, if you can't move Gostisbehere and a first. So now we're looking at some other names, which thank you Flyers fans that actually, maybe didn't agree with trading Couturier, but gave me other options. So we're going to look at some of those guys. One of those names on the defense, Travis Sanheim. Now, I don't see them trading a guy like Ivan Provorov, but what about Travis Sanheim or a guy like Robert Haig? I think those guys are a little bit more, they're cheaper to acquire because we know Provorov, with his contract and stuff, he's not going to be an easy, teams are not going to be able to trade for him, especially a playoff contender team that's not going to have a lot of cap space to begin with. It's going to be a lot, and a lot of assets as well. So Ivan Provorov stays put. I think the Flyers realize Provorov's value. He's going to stick around. So like I said, Sanheim or Robert Haig, you're starting to pluck away at some of that depth. So what about a team like maybe the Maple Leafs? If they want an upgrade over a guy like Zach Bogosian, Robert Haig would be a nice addition to a team like the Leafs. Or maybe what about a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, just to add some depth? I think a guy like Robert Haig would fit in nicely there with the Tampa Bay Lightning. What if we head to the West Coast? What if we talk about a team like the LA Kings, just to add a little bit of defensive depth? Robert Haig would be a nice addition, considering they seem to want that culture of like that big aggressive team. Robert Haig fits that mold perfectly with guys like Kale Clegg and Tobias Bjornfoot. I could see that really working well in that regard. So I think Robert Haig could get traded to a team like LA, maybe even Winnipeg is another team. And the same thing goes for Travis Sanheim. They're fairly similar players in that regard. Now look at the forwards. So if you're not trading Couturier, what if you traded a guy like, say, Travis Konechny? I think a lot of Flyers fans, again, don't want to hear Konechny getting traded, but this is a guy that has some value. He's a younger player, and if you don't move on from Nolan Patrick, you give Nolan Patrick more ice time by moving out Konechny, who has more value right now. So where could Konechny go? Well, Konechny could go to a couple of teams. I think the New Jersey Devils would be interesting. Maybe as, it allows Jack Hughes to play the wing maybe, and you have Konechny down the middle. But again, do the Devils and Flyers make a trade? Probably not. Well, what about the Dallas Stars? You add a little center depth there behind Pavelski. You have Sagan. That would be a nice addition. Konechny's a good, maybe second line, third line center. He would fit in well there. What about the Edmonton Oilers? They're not going to have cap space likely to re-sign Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Konechny is a cheaper option down the middle, and he could fit in well as a cheaper guy. If maybe Philly retains a little, Edmonton gives up a little something, they could maybe make that deal work. So that would be interesting as well. Or San Jose. I think San Jose would be a nice fit for Konechny as well, just to add some center depth. What about Nolan Patrick? If they don't trade Konechny, maybe they trade Nolan Patrick instead. Now, his value is very low right now, which is why I think they would trade Konechny over not Provorov. I forgot the damn guy's name. Nolan Patrick. Now, the question is, what is Patrick's value? Could you trade him to Columbus for Laine? Probably not. Could you trade him to, what about Arizona for Barrett Hayden? Is that the lower end of the spectrum for Nolan Patrick at this point? What is the value, So that's something that we could see. I think, like I said, I think Arizona and Columbus would be good fits. But again, what is the value of Nolan Patrick? Is it Barrett Hayden? Is that the price? Or is Laine? And it seems like those are two ends of the spectrum, but I don't really know where his value sits, so it's hard to make a mock trade. But I think a new change of scenery for Nolan Patrick, according to some inside sources from what we've heard, would be a nice thing. So, just a review, they're going to keep the head coach, Alain Vigneault. They're going to bring in a backup goaltender. I believe it could be a guy like Pekka Rinne, would fit in really nicely. We're going to see them maybe make some trades as well. Do they trade out like a guy like Shane Gostisbehere? Or a Travis Konechny, Nolan Patrick? Or even a guy like Sanheim or Robert Haig? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below of my opinion on some of the moves that we could see the Flyers make. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you guys like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey and want to see the latest news around the NHL, more videos like this, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and an even bigger subscribe down below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and let's go Flyers.